Well, hi, and welcome back to Will Henry's Workshop. I am Will Henry. I've been away again for a while and mostly doing stuff that have absolutely no relationship whatsoever to gunsmithing. But I did do some shooting, but I'm not going to talk about that much because I didn't do all that well. When there's something to brag about, I'll brag. But anyway, now that I'm done with all my gravel loading and hauling and my plumbing and electrical work and stuff like that, I'm going to get back to the gun work. But we're going to take a little break from that 40X I was working on. The next thing to come up with that is going to be the bushing of the bolt face and the truing up and so on. But in between, I have some other work that I wanted to do. And so I'm going to do that. Also, in between, you recall I had that Wichita Mini action rifle that I was planning to shoot, and I did shoot it at a match with an old barrel that had been set back. And it didn't do well to start with because that barrel had been fired with a lot of Molly coated bullets, not by me. And it usually takes about 20 shots to kind of get those to settle down and get some of the Molly out of there. And after that, it started to shoot fairly well. But anyway, my intention with that is to, and half of the reason I took it out is that I'd rechambered that barrel from PPC, which is what the action is made for, to 6BR. And in order to do that, the chambering and everything was straightforward enough, but I would have had to open up the shell holder bolt head in order to accommodate the BR brass, or I would have to rebate the rim. And I'll be right back. As it happens, I decided the easiest way would be to rebate the rim, because if I did that, then in the event that I wanted to go back to shooting a PPC in it, at least the bolt face would still work. So anyway, here's a BR case, and you can't really tell because it's not a great deal of rebate, but anyway, I turned the extractor groove and the rim down to PPC dimensions so it would fit the bolt head. And I did that. Let's see here. There we go. By simply making a little collet. It's split at 120 degrees so that I can put that in the 3-jaw chuck. And as you can see, it has a flange at the front that sits up against the chuck jaws. So I can stick the case in there, tighten the chuck up, and it holds it. And then I have a form tool that cuts the extractor groove and the rim at the same time. So anyway, that was successful. It worked out very well. So I at least verified that would work out. Now, the next thing I'm going to do is I've taken some 308 Winchester brass and done the same thing. Had to make another collet for that. But so the next test is to try that in 308. And I'll probably put on, I have a couple of old Hart barrels that I'll put on and chamber for the 308, and I'll try that out. And if everything works out well, then I may chamber my Williamson barrel to 308. But I'm not certain on that. The only reason I would do that is because I had at one point said that I would, and I kind of have to stick to it. But I'm thinking about possibly doing a 30 BR instead. But anyway, that's all neither here nor there. So while I was away, I had some rifles sent to me, And so the first one I wanted to work on a little bit, and I'll turn so you can kind of see this thing. And we'll do a little zoomage there. So this is this was sent to me by a viewer named Wayne, and this is a IBI barrel on a Remington 700 action, and it's chambered for the 6.5 by 47 Lapua, and it's fitted with IBI's brake, muzzle brake, and I honestly don't know who did the chambering. I think it was them. I think it was IBI. So anyway, the problem with the rifle is it doesn't shoot well. And so he sent it to me, hoping that I could do a little diagnosis of why that might be. So I've looked it over to start with, and as far as the barreled action is concerned, the barrel is, to all appearances, is very nice. I don't see any noticeable flaws in it with the bore scope. The throat is perfectly concentric, at least visibly concentric with the bore scope. I can't see any issue there. The barrel appears straight, and in pushing a lead slug through the barrel, and for just a moment, let me say, back you up again. There are people that say that you can tell nothing with a lead slug. And as far as producing accurate measurements of the bore, that's true. You are limited by what the slug will reflect from its travel through the bore, by how close you can measure it with your micrometer, by variations in temperature of the slug, the micrometer, the barrel, everything. So you can't come up with an absolute measurement, but you can identify tight spots, loose spots, and so on. So in pushing the slug through this barrel, it feels absolutely uniform all the way through, except where it's threaded for the muzzle brake. And for that last 5/8 of an inch of barrel, there's a noticeable looseness. Now, it's not enough. Again, you can't see it with the naked eye. Even knowing that it's there, you can't see the distortion. Maybe if I set up very carefully and had a light shining so it would reflect, I might be able to pick it up. But I would guess, by the feel of it, I would guess that there's probably a difference of not more than a couple 10,000ths of an inch. So it's very minute. There's a scratch on one land near the muzzle, and that's probably from putting the pilot of the reamer they used to finish the crown in. Maybe it just went in a little hard or whatever. But again, even knowing that mark is there, because I saw it with the borescope, I can't see it even with magnification, the magnification that I have to use to see much anything. So I don't consider either of those things to be a real problem. Now, when it comes to the thread for the muzzle brake, in fact, it's entirely possible that when you tighten the muzzle brake up on the thread, that might eliminate that looseness. That is to say, the radial force of tightening up a V thread might actually reduce the bore by that 2/10,000ths or whatever it is. But anyway, so I don't consider that to be a real flaw at all. So that the bottom line is, as far as the barreled action is concerned, I don't see any obvious issues. The bolt lugs are bearing, in total probably about 75%. And again, not enough of an issue that I would think it would be a problem. The bolt deflects, of course, under load from the striker contacting the sear, just like any other Remington. And while I feel that is usually good for 30 thousandths of an inch or so of vertical dispersion at 100 yards, that's generally about all. And so I'm not considering that to be a real flaw either. Now, so the only other thing that is likely, of course, there's the issues with scopes. Well, he's tried it with different scopes, and mounting, and there's no issue with the mounting. It's tight. Everything is well set up. The trigger is a Timney, and quite a nice trigger. And it's releasing well. There's no drag or anything. So all in all, as I said, mechanically, the barrel action seems fine. Now, the only other issue that I've spotted is, and really the only other issue that's likely to cause a problem like this, is in the bedding of the stock. And while the bedding job is very attractive, there are a couple aspects of it that I personally would not have done and don't necessarily like. Let me put my stock grabbing pads in here. And again, I'll move you up a little bit so that you can maybe see what I'm talking about. And I'll try to make sense as I speak. Always a challenge. Okay, so as you can see, this stock, a Macmillan, I believe, is has two aluminum pillars, and then it's bedded over those with what appears to be marine tex or something like it, and he's extended the bedding for at least 4 or 5 inches out into the barrel, so that 4 or 5 inches of the barrel is also supported by bedding. The recoil lug is bedded tight, or appears to be bedded tight, and there doesn't appear to be any clearance on the bottom, because the tool marks and so on in the bottom of the recoil lug are reflected in the recoil lug mortise there. So, generally speaking, with a Remington action, I don't believe you should bed any portion of the barrel. As a rule, they should be free floated all the way. Another thing with this barrel, and I can show you this, it's getting a little difficult. Show you this on the bottom, I think. On this barrel, the caliber is stamped on the bottom of the barrel, and why the hell you'd stamp it on the bottom, I don't know. But anyway, it's stamped on the bottom of the barrel, and not polished off. And then that stamping is also reflected in the bedding here under the barrel. Now, when you do that, then when you put the barrel action back in place, if that doesn't line up perfectly, or if there's anything interfering, then that creates a flaw in your bedding system. So I don't like that either. And but like I say, the whole the whole concept of bedding under the barrel I don't like, especially on a Remington or a Remington clone. So the first thing I would do is I would remove this. And the next thing I would do is I would provide clearance at the bottom of the recoil lug mortise. I don't care so much about the front or the sides, but I think clearance on the bottom is important. The last thing you want is for that recoil lug to possibly, if you got a little bit of debris under there or something, to keep the rest of the action from sitting down solidly on the bed. And so I am going to remove this, and I am going to provide that clearance, and then I'll check the bedding and make sure that it's level and stress free, and that's about all I can do. And then after that, when it's all said and done, we'll try shooting this thing and just see what we can accomplish. So that's that. That's what's coming up. And the reason we're not doing any of this right away is that I'm waiting for the bottom metal. And as soon as that gets here, I could go ahead and do it without the bottom metal, but I kind of think it's better to use the whole system so that you can, as they say, leave no stone unturned. So that's what we're going to do. On the muzzle brake, I think I started to talk about this and then got sidetracked. Anyway, if I were doing it, this barrel is almost 950 or thereabouts in diameter at the muzzle end. And but the thread is, I believe, a 5/8 thread, so that in fact, I think it might be a 9/16 thread. But anyway, there's nearly 0.2 of an inch of material removed all the way around, and that's even when the barrel material is properly stress relieved. There's still the possibility of that kind of growth when you remove that much material. At least 50% of the wall was removed, and so, like I say, we got that little bit of distortion, a couple 10,000ths or so. So if I was doing it, if I was making a brake for a barrel that size, I would probably make the brake 7/8 of an inch with a 7/8 inch thread, or maybe even maybe 13/16, just to go down a size, down around 8/12, and that way you remove less material. You're less likely to distort the bore and so on. And the same thing goes with putting a tuner or a tuner brake or anything like that on there. I like to thread it as large as I can, so that I can avoid any distortion of the bore. Another thing I kind of like to do when I'm doing a tuner, for example, is that I'll put on a sleeve that's threaded on the inside with a shallow square thread to go onto the barrel, and the shallow thread and square, because then it doesn't impart any radial forces, and you don't have to make it very deep. And then that sleeve is threaded with the V thread for the tuner. There again, probably doesn't make a big difference, because there's a whole bunch of them done differently that will beat me on any given day. So, but there again, that's just my interpretation of how things should be done. Anyway, for today, having done virtually nothing, I'm going to close this video out. And as usual, oh, there we go. Had to hunt for the remote. So until next time, This is Will Henry out.